On the edge of Santa Fe on Upper Canyon Road sits the Randall Davey Audubon Center. Bordered by Santa Fe National Forest and watershed land, this pristine and peaceful sanctuary of 135 acres was previously the home of renowned Santa Fe artist Randall Davey. And now, as an Audubon Center, helps conserve and restore the natural ecosystems of birds and other wildlife of the area. A visit to this beautiful and serene destination is twofold. You may take in the wildlife and landscape of the property, and by having the opportunity to walk through the home and studio of Randall Davey, become better acquainted with the man and his art. Upon entry to the center, you will be drawn into the wildlife garden, where if you sit still and keep your eyes open, the birds and other critters of this habitat will find their way into your view. You feel when you come on the premises the kind of serenity, and you're immersed in nature, but it's still within the city limits, but you feel so removed being in these, the foothills here.
So there's several heartstrings that get plucked just by being here, for me.
For sure.
The nature that's here, and the ability to get out into it, hiking, walking the rivers, Bear Canyon, the serenity. You come here when there aren't very many people, and it's a very comforting place to be. We invest a lot in teaching young people about conservation and about nature.
Even talking and walking amongst the fields and seeing all the different species that are in just this one area, the endless amounts of knowledge that can come out of, and the learning of different species and what role different species play in a larger ecosystem, The gardens and my conversation with Steve have served as an enchanting introduction to the sanctuary, but I'm ready to check out Davey's home and studio. Davey moved to this property in 1920 and lived and worked here until his death in 1964. The stately, though charmingly rustic residence still houses the objects and furnishings of the Davey family, not to mention many of the modern artist's paintings and works of art. Unlike his contemporaries in the Santa Fe art colony, Davey did not always choose the native culture and landscapes of northern New Mexico as his subjects, but found inspiration in the pastimes of his era, days at the races, music, and other elements of life in this chapter of American history. Docent Kim Strauss is on hand to give me a more in-depth look at the life and times of Randall Davey.
The stories that I've heard from people who knew Davey say that he was incredibly generous with not only other artists, but with friends and other people around. He was willing to help them out. He threw great parties here. He was known as a real bon vivant. And I think he was very popular with women, a dashing guy and charming. But he really was supportive of this young art colony.
And so what role did this house play? Were there parties like in these areas around the house?
Oh yeah. I've heard stories how all the family would be pressed into service to clean up the house for these parties. And that sometimes people would have such a good time that they needed to stay over because they couldn't negotiate the road back into town after they had been here.
That makes sense. That bar in there now kind of makes a little bit more sense in context.
I think when you see that, you get a sense of that these people knew how to have a good time.
Look into the Audubon Center's Nature Day Camp for the kiddos in the summertime. Kids get to discover, investigate, and play games encouraging a love and appreciation of nature. Before bird watching at the sanctuary, make sure to print up their bird sighting and checklist off their website. You'll be amazed at the many species of birds in this habitat. Take a docent-led tour of the home and studio, and be sure to ask your guide about the backstory to Davey's wedding photo in relation to the Audubon Center's mission. Here's a clue: note the feathers in their hats.